Hello and welcome to FutureFi, where we talk about anything and everything on the blockchain. Today we have Jason Cline on the show, and on this episode we talk about how Jason went from his traditional finance job to jumping full-time into Web3 creating content. We also discuss the current state of NFTs and the recent drama with Azuki and Zagabond. So there's a lot to talk about here. Let's jump into it. What's up, Damien? How we doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself today, Benzie?
Doing well. Excited to have Jason here. What's up, Jason? How you doing, man?
Hey guys, living the Web3 dream.
Hey, right now it's a little bit of the nightmare side, but yeah, we'll get to that dream state soon. But yeah, super excited to have you on, and thank you for taking the time. Would just love to start for the listeners to get a little bit to know about you. So if you can just explain, your background and what you're doing in Web3, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. Love what you're doing here. I'm really excited about what you're building. I think this is an important part of kind of how Web3 progresses, or having people like you really dive into it. So, anyways, about myself, January of 2020 was the perfect time to start TikTok in hindsight. So I started TikToking. I was told I was crazy. I was told I was dumb. I'm too old to do this. What are you doing? All these things. But I saw a business opportunity. I saw an opportunity to grow a network, grow an audience. And guess what? As you get older, I don't know about you guys, but for myself, it feels harder and harder to be creative. You get kind of sucked into the world, and you get sucked into your job, and you get sucked into your family, whatever it may be. And the creative side is kind of the first to go. And so I was really excited to explore being creative and kind of flexing that creative muscle. So I started making random videos on TikTok. I kind of got in a groove. I found my style. I was a storyteller. And that evolved into, fast forward, 2 years. And here we are with 4 million followers on TikTok. I transitioned over to YouTube, doing YouTube Shorts as well. So we're over, I think, about 140,000 on YouTube. And about a year ago now, maybe 9 months, I had seen a lot about NFT stuff. My background is in finance, investment management, pre all of this kind of social media stuff. And I just saw NFTs popping up everywhere. And I had the same kind of light bulb moment in my head about NFTs 9 months ago that I did when I started TikTok in January of 2020. I saw that this was going to be huge, that there was opportunity here to teach, to educate, to entertain, and to develop a lot of new skills. So I opened up a Twitter account, and I guess the rest is history, or I guess history is being written as we speak, because we're close to 10,000 followers on Twitter now, all 100% crypto NFT base. I'm all in, like 100% in to Web3, to DeFi, to NFTs. Like I love it all. I learn so much every day, and yeah, I'm just super excited about what's being built. It's definitely a challenge. You all know there are ups and downs. Last week was crazy. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's me, jasoncline.eth. Happy to be here.
That's awesome. No, that does make a lot of sense. Kind of comparing TikTok and deep diving into it is similar to, to jumping into NFTs, disruptive technology, obviously different, but in the same vein, people either get it or they don't. And I see exactly what you see. And it's cool that you made the plunge, and I love what you're creating and think it's really awesome, but would love to hear what your journey was like in NFTs, and what ones were the ones that really clicked for you and you really deep dove into and made you really fall in love with it.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So I'll tell you my first NFT project. And I still own a bunch of them today. And the community actually is still pretty, I know people say that, but the community is crazy, in a good way. I actually saw, this is funny, it's like full circle moment. I saw a TikTok about this NFT project called the Lonely Alien Space Club. And I saw the TikTok, and that is what actually got me to make a like that got me hooked. I was like, okay. I went to the website. I got poking around on the website, and I was like, well, this looks cool. And like, I've been researching NFTs for a while now, and I think, I just like it. I like the concept. I like the alien art. I thought the artist, did a really good job. And so I was like, how do I get one of these? I was like, what is OpenSea? Like all these questions started coming up, and that was really, what the kind of jumping, head first into the deep end of the pool was the Lonely Alien Space Club. So I ended up buying some off of OpenSea, and I joined the community. I didn't have a Discord prior to that. Didn't even know how to use Discord. So I joined the Discord. I started chatting to these random Lonely Alien Space Club members from around the world, and that just solidified like everything I thought NFTs and the Web3 world could be. Just understanding how powerful it was to be in community with people from all around the world with different skills, different interests, all coming together like around this, silly little JPEG image, right? So I realized that it was much deeper than the image. And so fast forward through 2021, I was buying lots of random projects. A few of the highlights for me personally, the creeps were that was and still is a really cool experience. The guys, that came up with creeps and that concept, that art, the story, the lore, the game, the way the website works, everything, they've gone above and beyond anything that I've seen in this space. And so really, really still excited about that. I think it has some of the most unique art out there. So that's definitely a highlight of my NFT journey this past year. I think another highlight is I really started getting into the the games, the P2E games. The first one that I got into was Wolf Game. And then I got into Wizards and Dragons. I thought was really cool. It had like a week or two of kind of a good run of it being fun and doing napkin math, as it's called. I actually got a role in one of my Discord servers called Napkin Maths King or something.
Nice.
so I really because I like data, I like numbers, and so just kind of playing around with some of those P2E games got to be fun. Shadow Quest is another one that's been really fun. But the one that I found that it has been my home base and has inspired me to make this transition into being a creator full time, into being in the Web3 space full time. That's the Phunks, the crypto Phunks, which, there's a lot of history there. I joined in November, and certainly I'm happy to field questions about it. But needless to say, Phunks are more than just flipped punks. That's what they started out as. The community and the movement is much larger than that now. And so that's where I've found my kind of home base and kind of found my people. And I'm really excited about all that community is doing and the inspiration it's giving, throughout NFTs and Web3.
Yeah. I mean, naturally with the times, Phunks have made a lot of headlines because of the founder releasing that Medium article with the projects that he has created leading up to Azuki. So that is definitely a topic I think we could deep dive into, as NFTs are built by the community for the community. But when there are some bad apples in there, or some, however you view it, but that's something we can definitely dive in. And how was that for the Funk community internally? Because I was just kind of watching, but being a part of one of the communities that are involved, how was that?
Yeah, man, that's a loaded question because, a lot of us, I joined in November, but, you got to remember that the project itself came out in, I believe, June or July originally of 2021. So there's some OGs that have really lived through the trenches. So there's a lot there in terms of emotion and feeling. But I can tell you, it definitely it is a victorious moment, and there was definitely some celebration because as I'm sure you can imagine, the community has been trying to figure out who these kind of scammers were for 9, 10, 11 months now, right? It's not like it's not like everyone was just happy and we're just kind of moving along. It's like we've always been seeking reconciliation. And so to have of that kind of victory, and it seemed unreal. It was like a moment that seemed like this. We just kept saying to each other, like, is this happening? Like, are we dreaming? Like, did this really happen? Right? Like, did the devs that left that scammed our community and others and took millions of dollars away from not just us but the ecosystem at whole? Like, did they really just give 1.4 million USDC back to Phunks? Did they really just give 503 Phunks that they've had locked in the dev wallet back to Phunks? Did they really just give 1.6 million USDC back to the Zunk project? Like, it all just was a little bit surreal, but it was definitely some celebrations happening.
No, interesting. So without knowing, because I just found out the story later. So while you guys were in this community, were you guys unsure of who the devs were and there was just this uncertainty and this actually brought it to light?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the devs have always been anonymous, and even more so than being anonymous, they've been purposeful in their intent to hide their identities and to change who they go by on Twitter, to change mixing up tons of wallets from project to project. So the Phunks never knew who Zagabond was, right? Like, the Phunks never knew. The whole intent was trying to find out who it was. And what happened basically is, it's the I heard Paulie, who's pretty vocal on Twitter and has an infamous reputation. I personally love the guy, but he said something recently. It's like digital pheromones, right? Like, no matter how anonymous you are or how skilled you are, like, there are just pheromones, breadcrumbs, trails that are left slowly over time. And eventually, in this case, it took a while, but eventually it'll catch up to you. So, early on when Zunks was actually created and before it dropped, the Phunks, several of the prominent Phunks members had pieced together that those developers were the same guys who kind of rug the Phunks, and they tried to make warnings. They went to Twitter, they went to the Discord, they got blocked and banned and basically gaslit of like, no, you're crazy. And all of those warnings were given before Zunks even minted. Of course, Zunks minted, the devs rugged, they took millions of dollars out of the marketplace and moved on. But the thread that tied them all together, it took a while to get it all pieced together, is what I'm saying. So after 9 or 10 months of like detective work, blockchain analysis, social media, like just a ton of work and effort went in to tracking this down. And the whole reason that Medium article came out, it wasn't out of the goodness of Zagabond's heart to come out and say that he developed all of these. The reason he came out is because it was made known to him that he was going to be exposed unless he started like taking action immediately. And that's when the Medium article dropped, and that's kind of the rest unfolds from there. So I'll pause there, but that's more of the backstory.
Interesting. So in a strange way, right? The one thing that stuck out to me is like the community like went into this like Scooby-Doo detective agency. And as we like look at these NFT communities, like super unfortunate, right? But probably a super big community building exercise where like it kind of sounds like a lot of people are working together trying to figure out who this is, who's taking advantage of this community. And maybe I'm wrong, but that kind of sounds like possibly that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and you know what's even crazier? Again, the story of Phunks is legendary. I promise you, there will be documentaries made. There are already major like articles and papers being written, case studies being done, because it's even deeper than what you said, right? Because think about this: when the devs left after the DMCA notice from Larva Labs forced OpenSea to take Phunks off of OpenSea, the devs said that they were going to build a marketplace. They said they were going to keep building and yada yada yada, but they just left. They changed their names, they changed their accounts, they moved on, and the community was left without devs, without the keys to the contract, the actual contract. They had nothing. The devs didn't turn over the Twitter account, so every single thing that was built in Phunks was built by the community. So a new Twitter account was made by the community. A website, an entire fee-free marketplace was built called Not Larva Labs that is completely smooth, very seamless. It's done over $50 million in sales, and it's an independent community-built website, not affiliated with OpenSea or any of these other marketplaces. All of that was built by the community. All of this kind of sleuthing and research and Scooby-Doo work, as you coined it, all of this was done by Phunks, who for 4 months had no way to even trade their NFT that they owned, let alone like make any money from it, right? And so this whole story, the underline behind all of it is nobody has made money or pumped a bag or did any of that in this whole saga. Like, it really is a true example of what decentralization could look like when a community comes together, not financially motivated, but like for the betterment of Web3 and what that looks like. So yeah, basically the community was able to figure this out after lots of Scooby-Doo work.
So something I kind of wanted to touch on. So you're pretty early and new to crypto as a whole. I mean, about a year or so, about a year or two, would you say?
Yeah, a year or two for NFTs, but I've been familiar with crypto for years. I have a really close friend of mine actually who was minting Bitcoin and years and years and years ago from his laptop, right? So that's how long ago it was. And I thought he was the craziest guy in the world, but I listened to him. I was like, oh, like this seems interesting. So I was aware of crypto. I had certainly bought and sold Ethereum and Bitcoin and those kind of things years prior, but most definitely the past year or two have been the most kind of head first into this world.
Gotcha. Okay. And so pretty early on, you learned the value of conjuring up a community, a global community, and aggregating people like that. But before that, did you ever have any like doubts or big hairy questions going into NFTs, or was it all you went in pretty optimistically, naively, maybe? How would you kind of like define that? And the reason I ask is because some listeners could be new to NFTs, might be on the fence. So just kind of wanted to, share your journey so that they can kind of see themselves on it as well.
Yeah, I'll for sure say that I was a skeptic, no doubt. I entered skeptically, but one of the things that's kind of like a thread throughout my life personally is that I don't let fear like kind of stop me, and I don't let the opinion of other people sway like what I'm trying to do in my own life, right? Like, I've lived in a ton of different states. I've taken jobs, I've left jobs that were good. Like, I've done a lot of things that a lot of people in my personal life wouldn't do. Oh, that's too much of a risk, or oh, you're crazy, or all these different things. So for me, I've always had a little bit of an edge in that way. So I dove in, but I was still skeptical, and I certainly didn't get the best onboarding experience that I feel like an NFT user could get today jumping in. Like, I didn't know what a hardware wallet was. I didn't know really how to use a MetaMask or setup. I started out on a Coinbase wallet, right? Which by the way, no knocking it, you can still do a lot of things on Coinbase wallet even today. But I would say that I started off with a small amount of money. I think the Lonely Alien Space Club, those things were like 0.03 or 0.04 Ethereum. And so at the time, I mean, it was like $100, $150. I don't remember exactly, but I think that's a big thing for me. If you're new, is like, start out with a little bit of money. I didn't expect to get any of it back. I was definitely skeptical. I was like, how does this work? And slowly build. Like, I think the challenge for a new person now compared to even a year ago is if you go on Twitter, it seems like everyone knows what they're doing. It seems like everyone is like 100xing their 0.01 ETH or whatever every day, and it seems like you're supposed to go from 0 to 100 like immediately. And my biggest advice I would give is to just move slowly. Start out with a small amount of money, do a lot of research, understand the basics. I highly encourage any new person to read the white paper on Ethereum. You know how many people have never done that? I would say probably less than 10% of people in NFTs have ever read the white paper on what Ethereum even is or hopes to be, right? So those are some of the big ones for me.
Yeah, you definitely pointed out one good one is everyone on Twitter, everyone just posting their highlight reels, their wins. And that's, all well and good, but you have to really get wrecked sometimes to really learn what this space is about, because it's not all put money in, pull 100x out. This is a very volatile market, and yeah, a lot of people like to paint the perfect picture.
Say honestly, in my opinion, if you join NFTs and you immediately, if you were someone, for instance, who your first mint was a Bored Ape Yacht Club, and you haven't experienced like trials and tribulations and rugs and devs leaving and price go up, price crash, like I honestly think that long term, some of those people are going to be worse off than if you start and your first 4 projects, go to 0, right? And like you go through all that, because you have to learn. Like this is a space unlike any other in that you really do have to just learn through experience. And there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of nuance to this space. There are a lot of scammers. There are a lot of people that are highly incentivized to be bad actors in this space as it stands now. And so you're going to have to learn, right? Like I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't go through all that I've went through, right? So I just think that it's actually better if you don't get lucky right away, right? I think you got to take your punches and roll with it. That's why it's important to not go all in right away. You got to kind of just feel it out.
I think that's perfect advice to give people. So something else before we move on, how would you say as a whole, as like an ecosystem, how has the NFT market changed from, let's say, the first 3 months you were in it to the last 3 months?
That's a great question. I think the first 3 months, there were way less projects, right? There were way less things happening on a day-to-day basis. And so
sorry to interrupt. And when was that exactly? Like around a month or quarter, if you could throw it on there just so people have it for reference.
Q1 of 2021, a year ago, basically.
Yeah, I mean, a year in crypto, a lot can change. So please go ahead.
a week in crypto. I mean, look at just what happened in the past week. So I mean, it really is. It moves. That's something that it's a joke, but it's not a joke. Anyone out there that's listening, if you're just now kind of researching or trying to understand the crypto world, not even just NFTs, just the crypto DeFi like Web3 world, it moves at least 10x the speed, and that's not a joke. I mean, things happen so quickly, the meta changes very fast, and what people are interested in and how things are being done. And I have a really good example of this, by the way. Don't let me forget, maybe make a note of it. I want to give an example of a cool innovation that just happened in like the blink of an eye from someone that I know in the space. But how it changed was we went from having few projects, so people were more committed to actually being in community. Right? If there were only 10 projects to pick from and, a couple 100,000 people or 1 million people, they all kind of filter into their spot. They're all involved, but it created a lot more of like an exciting and fun and authentic experience when you're in a Discord and community and group. And as we've kind of moved along, and the other thing was most projects did decent. I mean, most projects would min out. They would go up a little bit at minimum. So that was happening, and then there were a lot less there were a lot less scams, right? Like there were a lot less intentional rug projects in these just fake, just these fake, not real scams. Like the scammers hadn't figured out the opportunity yet, basically, right? They didn't realize how big of an opportunity it was, in Q1 of 2021. Now, fast forward to today, that authentic community and like actually being able to like feel like you have a friendship with people, and there are people that care about you and you like are looking forward to catching up with each day in Discord or on Twitter, that unfortunately only lives in very few, very, very, very few projects. Most of them are way too expensive for most people to afford. And then the other place that it's moved to are these quote unquote alpha groups. I'm going to put them in quotes because all of them just like are just getting information from each other, right? And then submitting it to their followers. But those groups do have a little bit more of like engaged, involved people, because think about it. If you have 30 Discord servers, you're looking at 30 projects, and then you have one quote unquote alpha group server. Like why would you spend your day popping into 30 different Discords when you could just kind of have your water cooler at the alpha group, right? And everyone can talk about all the projects at once. So that's what's happened. That's a shift that I've seen happen over the past few months, where there's less real community and friendship being built in Discords of individual projects. And that kind of thing has shifted to be happening in alpha groups. The unfortunate thing about that, I mean, there's some downsides, but one of the unfortunate things about that is if you get in a bad alpha group, if you're new and you like, again, there's no world in which you should ever pay for one of these groups. Please don't do that. That's big advice. Like, don't ever pay to be in an alpha group. Like, don't do any of those things. But the unfortunate thing is if you get involved and into an alpha group that's not good, that's shady, that's scammy, that they're not actually in it for good intentions, they're just collecting money off the people that are in their Discord, you're gonna have a really rough go of it, in my opinion. And it's gonna be difficult to get out of that situation. So I've seen that happen. And then the other thing that's changed is the number of projects that are minting on a daily basis. There are more projects minting in one day on Ethereum than there were in like a month previously back in Q1. So there's just so much coming in. It's like information overload. It again makes it a lot more challenging for a new person now. I don't doubt that one bit.
Okay, so you would say that the value of communities has, instead of being distributed as it was before, now it's a lot more concentrated in specific groups that are highly exclusive, which makes it hard for people to get in and also leaves them at a disadvantage when it comes to collecting quality information that they can act on to obviously remain in a good position. And that secondly, the market is crowded with a lot more scams. And so unless you have some experience, what would you say is the defining characteristic or trait that today would make someone more suited for the NFT market than another, say?
I think if you're going to be getting into NFTs now, you have to be a skeptic at heart, and you have to verify everything. Like there's obviously the acronym DYOR, right? Do your own research. You see that thrown a lot, around Twitter and other things. But in all reality, if you are not someone who is able to separate emotion and your feeling from like just looking at the information and being a skeptic, you're going to be unfortunately in a position where you're used as exit liquidity, as they say, as the people that actually understand how things are working are completely taking the opposite side of you every single time. And so you can't trust anybody. Like that is the biggest, if you're going to be successful in NFTs, you can't trust anybody at any point in time. You have to always have your guard up. And I know I'm sounding like a little bit of a doomsdayer here of NFTs. It's not true. Like there are positives, and we can certainly get into my personal feelings of the positives, but I'm just being realistic, right? I think too many people are preaching this like WAGMI, we're all going to make it, just follow my alpha, turn notifications on, I'm going to get you whitelisted to this and are like speaking like so optimistically and like free flowing. It's just going to be the best time ever. Come join. When in reality, I think that's setting people up for failure. You cannot enter the space with that mentality. You must enter the space almost like a militant style mindset. You have to be disciplined. You have to know that nobody is looking out for your best interests, and that a scammer will scam you in a blink of an eye and take all of your money and have no remorse or no regret, and you're gone, and you're done, right? Like there is no protection for you in this space. You are in control of everything you do, and if you aren't protective of what you have, someone will come and take it.
Got it. Okay. So basically because of the custodial nature of crypto and irreversible nature of transactions, you just got to really keep your guard up if you're going to be in the space. There's no running around singing kumbaya with every community and making money together. At least not anymore, if it was like that in the beginning, which I think it kind of was. So it brings up a really good question though, with you mentioning alpha groups. What would you say if you had to put a percentage on them? How many of them are quality and how many of them are just kind of trying to take people's money? And two, I think, and I'd love to hear your opinion, I feel like a lot of these new NFT alpha groups are really just they're basically using each other's communities to kind of pre-sale their NFTs, and there's just a lot of hype and kind of mystery kind of surrounding them, and everybody just mints it anyway because why not? And then that kind of ends up propping up the value, even though there may or may not actually be real community value. What are your thoughts? What's your experience with that and whatnot?
I think there are less than 5% of alpha groups that are actually real, that actually are, that people are looking out for each other's best interests. People aren't trying to do exactly what you said, which is like the insider shifting of, all these alpha groups, they all have whitelists for the same project. That project, everyone that whitelisted for it is in an alpha group most likely. And then it's just like a game of musical chairs between all the alpha groups of which one is minting and selling to the other one. It's like they are creating their own hype and FOMO bubble inside of alpha groups, and almost every single time it never leaves that little realm. And that's why these things, they might mint out and have a very, very short-lived little pump, and then back to zero they go, because it's become like, it's not funny because people really have, the Luna, that's a separate topic, but the Luna collapse and the UST collapse, absolute catastrophe. Obviously, so many people were financially just wrecked, emotionally. Like, it's been a very hard time. But I say all that to say that what is happening with the alpha groups and their whitelists and yada, 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 all these things, it does remind me a lot of like what just happened to Luna, right? Everyone is like, oh, this is great, and I'm in this alpha group, and I'm getting this whitelist, and this can't possibly go wrong because we're all in this together. Wag me. But the reality is, it's not good. It's not a good situation to be in, because the reality is those alpha groups, the only ones that are getting the real benefit are the creators of the alpha group. Most of them have some sort of paid something. There's some monetary value the creator of those alpha groups are getting, right? And on top of that, if you are the creator of that alpha group, and I know a little bit of behind the scenes because I'm a creator. I don't have an alpha group. I'm not shilling an alpha group. Hopefully you can tell by the way I'm talking about them that that's not my intent. But the way that it works is like, these guys will reach out, guys or girls will reach out to projects, and they'll say, hey, I've got 1,000 people in my Discord. We're an alpha group XYZ. Can you give us some whitelist spots, whatever? The project will be like, sure, that's free marketing, right? Like, here are people that are in the space. Like, we'll give you 25, we'll give you XYZ spots. But the other thing that these creators can do that they're not transparent about to their community is they'll be like, hey, because I'm giving these 25 alphas, these 25 whitelist spots to my alpha group, like, they're very valuable members of the community. So I need a free mint. I need you to pay me. I need a free mint. I need something from it as the person that is set this whole thing up, right? So what happens is they always win. The creators of the alpha groups always win because they've got a free ride. Now, they may invest their own money, they may really believe in a project, like all of these things, but when you strip it all back to the surface, the only people in these alpha groups that are winning no matter what are the creators of the groups. And so it reminds me a lot because, I again, finance, investment management background, it reminds me a lot of the derivatives and like options market and just like the stock market, because who always wins? The market makers. Who always wins, like historically speaking and probability wise? The people selling premium. They're the ones selling the puts. They're the ones selling the calls because historically speaking and statistically speaking, they're going to be right. That, the predictions that you're trying to make and guessing on price, it's not going to be there. And the premium you paid to have that option is going to go to zero. And the person that gave you that option is going to collect the money. That's exactly how these alpha groups work. They're just options, and the alpha group creators are the market makers. They're the ones selling the calls and puts. If that makes sense. I don't know if anyone in the community gets that reference, but that's where my mind goes.
No, I understand it 100%. And so, me personally, I've never really been super focused on the NFT market. It's always just kind of been, something I pay attention to for the cultural aspect of it. But I've always paid more attention to what's going on in DeFi. And I don't feel like you can really understand and know what's going on in both spaces at the same time. I think it's just, there's too much. So I think everyone should specialize. Not to say that you should be exclusive, right? But I would say pick your school of thought, and stay in your lane and be comfortable with that. You're going to see, different tokens, different NFTs, whatever, 100x, and maybe you didn't have it. You got to know how to hold your head, like put your head down and focus on what you're doing and have conviction and faith that it's going to work out after, of course, being well researched.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I make one last point on the alpha group thing? So so there is the 5% that is good. And so those 5%, those groups are mostly free. They're mostly people who have met each other in different communities that have come together to form their own group. It's more of like a friendship group than a paid alpha group. But that's where the real value comes. When there's a trust, again, you must always be cautious. But when no one in the group is taking each other's money, when everyone in the group is committed to making sure that everyone eats and everyone is fed and everyone is trying to be in it together, I think that is what anyone new to the space should aim to achieve. Like, find people that you like, that that have proven that they have a credibility and a track record that's positive. Again, that can all change in a split second, so always be cautious. But that is how you build your like close circle. And I personally have a close circle that I love. Right, not a paid group, a close circle of friends. We are able to communicate with each other and be there for each other and be available at all times. And so that's something, it takes time to build, I guess is what I'm saying. Going back to my original point, which was things don't happen overnight in NFT world if you want to do it right. And so these kind of groups and these friends and these communities of real alpha groups are built with time and with understanding each other and with making friends. That is how it's really done. I will say, there are some NFT communities. There are some right now. Most of them are pie in the sky, way too expensive. Like Kaiju Kings, like some of these ones that have real alpha groups, but they're untouchable from anyone coming into the NFT space that doesn't have $1 million. Like, you can't even get in there. So those groups certainly are real alpha groups with real community, but they're gated by price, right? I will say that Phunks, not a plug specifically for Phunks, but I can vouch for the community, the credibility, the track record, all these things for Phunks. Now, again, they're not entry level. They're still 0.5 ETH or something right now to get in, but there are few and far between projects that kind of hit a secret sauce of that community and people that actually care about each other. But it's difficult. That's not the best route in the current form of NFTs.
Gotcha. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I appreciate you highlighting a few of the groups that are actually doing well. That way people can perhaps have a model to look at when they're evaluating new communities. But I think the through line here is effectively that everyone looks like an overnight success when you first hear about them, because you only hear about them once they're successful, but nobody ever really knows what went into that success and how long that night may have been before finally the sun rose for them, right? um, and that communities can't be created overnight. Basically, they're created first, and then the NFT is born. Not you just like shoot an NFT out into the world, and suddenly everyone wants it. No one wants to sell, and the number goes up a million times. Right?
Yeah,
It just doesn't happen. No matter how cool the art is, it's about the people first. Because at the end of everything, at the end of crypto, NFTs, even finance, anything in the world, everything is all the decisions are being made by humans. And so it's important to know like what their feelings are and what they may do next. Which is why it seems that a lot of poker players seem to be really good in the crypto space and NFT space, because I think they're really good at doing what you described, which is just being very objective, and having a lot of conviction. They have a lot of intuition, I would say. Would you say that take is on par or on target or
yeah.
not?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes right back to what I said. Like you emotions have to be out of it. You have to be analytical. You have to be skeptical. Like your brain needs to work that way. Like if you're someone who reads something on social media and then you immediately believe it, or you get outraged because it says something you don't agree with without actually understanding whether or not what was said is even true, you're probably someone who's not going to do well in NFTs, because NFTs, you can get sucked down the rabbit hole of some really bad stuff really quickly if you just believe what the tweets say, you know?
Yeah, 100%, especially crypto Twitter. I mean, I think Twitter and crypto Twitter are two totally different social networks, honestly. Just because of how different they are, down to like having our own terms and whatnot. But before we move on, I wanted to get back. You mentioned you wanted us to remind you of something about when things change. Something about a spark, if I'm not mistaken, with a friend.
Yeah. So innovation, right? And like how it happens in this space, it happens really quickly. And a lot of times when it happens, it goes unnoticed. But then as soon as it's picked up, or like a bigger group or a bigger community or someone with a louder voice recognizes what's happening, there's like a huge shift really quickly. So there were a few examples of that have happened in the past. Like, everything was about PFPs, and then all of a sudden the P2E, like these games started popping up like overnight. Basically, there were like 4, 5, 6, 7 different NFT games that were popping up, and that became the meta. But it happened in like a week. It was just like a snap of a finger. All of a sudden, every project minting was like trying to take advantage of this new meta. So it shifts quickly. And then the actual innovations of like moving stuff forward in the space, unfortunately, they haven't been happening that often, because so many people have just been focused on one thing, and that's price go up. That the real builders and the people making cool stuff, they're actually not the ones getting the financial. They're the ones not getting support from the community, from the stuff they're building that's really cool. Like there are tons of projects right now that have built cool stuff, cool features on their website, gasless, really cheap gas, layer 2 solutions for games, all these really neat things that, again, if number doesn't go up, no one cares about it. So then that kind of technology that would actually move the space forward kind of gets dust, it's kind of just left behind a bit. But something that just happened that I think is going to be a game changer. Maybe it's not right for every project to do this method, but it's certainly the first project that I've ever seen do this on Ethereum, and it's coming from a guy and his team. His name is Omakase. He's quickly kind of blown up on crypto Twitter in the past just few months, even because of his substantial knowledge, not only of crypto and DeFi, but like of smart contracts, of coding, of actually understanding how this stuff works. And it's really interesting. He's built this following quickly for a reason, and it's because he's a builder, right? And he has a huge team. His team's building, his team's creating, and they are creating without the intent of pumping their bags, because self-proclaimed, I think Omakase doesn't care about more ETH at this point in his life and his journey. Like he's been successful in this world. And so his building and all of his energy and attention is going into actually innovating. And that was a long preamble way to say what he just launched was the ability. It's called the vending machine contract, right? For ETH, for minting. So what you can do, and I did this. This just happened a few days ago. So a lot of people still, again, don't know about this. But typically in NFTs, when you go to mint, what do you have to do? You have to go to a website. Okay, you have to go to that website. You have to connect your wallet. You have to mint. You know how many millions and millions of dollars have been phished or stolen or accounts hacked by this process? There's a lot. I mean, I would say hundreds of millions of dollars has been lost or stolen from scams, from people redirecting to a wrong website, from people putting all this kind of bunk code into their contract. So when you connect your wallet to the website, it can just wipe your wallet. We've seen this time and time and time and time again. Well, the vending machine the vending machine contract allows you to literally send a ETH. So let's say the mint is 0.1. You can send 0.1 ETH from your wallet to an address, to an Ethereum address. When you send that ETH to that Ethereum address, it has a fallback function that mints the NFT and sends you the NFT back to your wallet without ever connecting to a website, without ever having an opportunity to be phished, without having to sign an approval on the blockchain for access to any of your funds, any of your NFTs. It's literally that simple. And the first one he did is he did a Bored Ape Yacht Club V3 for fun, right? The first 10,000, they sold out in less than 12 hours, and they were 0.001 ETH each. You send 0.001 ETH to the contract sends you a Bored Ape Yacht Club back. But the code that he used and the actual contract that he used is almost entirely different than what the Bored Ape Yacht Club contract is, but it points to the base URI of the actual Bored Ape Yacht Club. So it's all of it's random, right? Like when it mints, it's going to mint a random one, but it all matches up with the original. And then he just kind of moved on, and now he's doing it with the Mutant Ape Yacht Club V3, whatever he's calling it. But the NFT itself at this point doesn't matter that it's being used on. The point is, nobody that I've seen has done this vending machine mint ability on NFTs yet.
So it sounds like he's being like the authoritative third party to, facilitate some of these trades and becoming a trusted person in the space.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about facilitating trades. I mean, the contract that he has deployed is unique and has actually innovated the space in such a way that you no longer need to connect your wallet to mint an NFT. You can just send whatever the mint price is of ETH. You can just send it to the Ethereum address without ever needing to connect your wallet to anything or go to a website.
Yeah, curious to see how it handles, gas. Because as popular mints tend to have gas wars, how it facilitates things of that nature.
Well, so what basically it seems to be doing is de-risking the process of buying an NFT by, instead of eliminating the need to trust a website, instead you just need to trust the contract to which you're sending the minting ETH, and in return you receive the NFT without having to connect everything. That's what's happening, correct?
Correct. And then even further than that, because you're just sending ETH to a contract, there's nothing that contract can do to, like, you're not setting an approval or anything like this, right? So like no one can take your NFTs, no one can just like take more ETH than what you sent. It's just a send of the ETH. The worst case scenario is if someone was trying to quote unquote scam or do something shady. The only thing you have at risk is what you're sending in, the total amount of ETH you're sending in for the mint, which, reminder, the way that minting works now with these gas wars and all these things, is, I mean, take other side land as a great example, right? Like the mint was 2.5, but people were spending 5 ETH to get the gas to try to mint, and then their transactions were failing. And not only did they lose the 2.5 ETH of the mint, but they also lost an additional 2.5 ETH on the gas. In this case, that's not how it would work in the worst case scenario. But the way that this contract is built, as it is now, right, in a good way, not some shady scammer way, what it does is if you send the ETH to the address and there are no more tokens to spit back at you, it's been minted out, it just reverts the ETH back to you. You just get your ETH back. Like there's no, you don't lose your money, right? So I think it's really interesting, and you're going to start seeing, I'm telling you right now, you're going to start seeing this pop up. If you just pay attention on Twitter, you're going to start seeing the conversation around this type of minting mechanic pop up a lot more in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think the infrastructure surrounding all of Web3 really needs to be developed further in ways to mitigate the risk of being scammed, like you described, but also just making it easier to get into Web3, right? I mean, even if somebody wants to mint an NFT for the first time, it's going to take a lot of work to kind of get them through the Coinbase and to withdraw it to a MetaMask and to actually mint and understand what the heck is happening the entire time. By the time they figure all of that out, the project probably will have already minted out. Well, maybe not today, actually. What would you say is like so here's a good question. What would you say defines today, in this climate that we have now, a good project? Like before, it was, if it didn't mint out, it was trash. Would you say that's still the case, or do you think slow mints, open mints are going to be a thing, and that's the way it should be? I mean, even apes and others were like that as well. What do you think? What defines a successful mint or project launch?
Yeah, I think that's a that's a really good question. That's kind of like the $1 million question, right? Like what's a good project? I think there's no one single thing to say, hey, yeah, this is going to be a good project. And I think it's a combination of things, right? Like I think the team behind it is important. It's not important that they're doxxed. I think that's a conversation that's coming up now after everything that happened with Azuki last week. It's like the intent is not that everyone needs to be doxxed, because shocker, you can be a doxxed and known person that is doing bad stuff, right? Like that doesn't stop anyone from doing anything bad. So I think that's kind of a misnomer in NFTs right now. It's like, right, like you can be doxxed, you can be anon, but you gotta have some track record that is provable or traceable on the blockchain or in real life, that there's some credibility there, right? Like that is paramount in any project that is starting now. That experience matters, right? So I think that is very, very important. I think the other thing that's important is like, don't mint something for 0.25 ETH, right? Like I don't think that's not the way. If you really care about this space and Web3 and decentralization and providing access to this technology and everything to more people, that's not the way. You can do a super, super cheap mint or a free mint, something along those lines. I think the projects that are going to find a lot of success and have staying power are going to be the projects that actually build community. And it's difficult to build community if the entire community is rallied around price go up, right? Like that is a flaw in most NFT projects, is if the price is not going up, the project is dead, basically, right? Like no one's into it, no one's in the Discord, no one's in the community, and those projects will continue to fizzle out. So outside of that, I think people that are making projects with like these grand roadmaps, I think that's also a big red flag. That especially in this current climate, there's no reason to have a giant roadmap of all of these things. Actually, projects that have less of a roadmap and are more open-ended at the beginning seem to actually do better in the short and midterm. I think that it's important that the community can feel like that they can be a part of something that they're building together, not that's just kind of prescribed on top of them. I think it sets a project up for failure as well, because if you put a roadmap out there, now you have all of these things that the expectations never stop. And as soon as you don't meet one of your expectations from your roadmap, it kills the energy, it kills the vibe, people get negative, and that fundamentally kind of breaks down most NFT projects as soon as one date is missed, as soon as one thing is pushed. And I'm telling you, in this space, there are going to be delays. There are going to be things that people think they can do that they can't do. And I've seen it time and time and time and time again. People are so confident and so aggressively confident that what they're saying they're going to do and their dates, it's all going to work. And very, 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 very rarely does that work. And when it doesn't work, that's kind of like that kind of kills the flow of the project. So I don't know if that answers your question, but those are some of the ones I think of.
I completely agree. And one thing that you said that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, like top-down communities where there's leaders like, this is what we're going to do, this, and this, and delivering. Sure, there's value in that sometimes, but there's, with this protocol and trustless and really using this decentralization, building things together and using community and using the force of everyone working on one goal, I think that's much more powerful. And that's something that I kind of resonated with what you said about, big roadmaps. Yeah, it's just like, here's a painted picture, jump on board and be, just another person, or in a community where people are building and working towards common goals together.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that people have begun. It's the NFT market. I feel has really changed in the last year, like incredibly so. Like people are looking at NFTs, or at least they were for a really good minute there, as though they were securities themselves, like they were stocks, right? That you buy and then they just go up, without even like really looking at the community and if they're connected or not, because everyone's always just asking, what the floor price is, what the min price is going to be, worried about getting whitelisted, et cetera, instead of actually building something cool. Would you say that NFTs should not be seen as securities, and that that's the wrong way to look at them, and instead they should be looked at as like membership cards, and that the value of them is really a measure of how attached people are to that community?
I personally think there's room for both. I think in the short to midterm, though, you're going to see. I mean, it's already happening, but you're going to see a shift to more heavily focused on the community piece, because you're right. Like it got too much too fast with what the focus was of projects, and it just kills it. There were too many people treating NFTs like a security because they saw someone post on Twitter that they turned 1 ETH to 100 ETH, and now everyone thinks they can do it. And that is a problem right now in NFTs. And so I think the security mindset of, I'm buying this thing, but it's going to deliver me, it's going to give me XYZ on the roadmap. I'm going to get this free mint. I'm going to get this metaverse land. I'm going to get. I think that narrative, at least for now, is going to be tough. It's going to be tough to have a successful project with that narrative in the current climate. I think what's going to work well is going to be, what can we give as a community? What are we as a community giving, both individually and as a community? What can we give? Like, what are we here for? What purpose are we rallying behind? Like those types of like actual community focus, like the more of like, you're buying this NFT to be part of this community and this membership, and we're gonna, yeah, sure, we could potentially build cool stuff together, and there could be some financial reward down the road for that. I think there's that narrative that's going to play out, and I personally am really excited for that, because I think actual community is really important. And with the world being shut down because of the big C word, and for so long, and people being isolated and stuck inside, and having family members and friends that didn't make it, and all these things, like there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of isolation. People crave community. That's a human nature. You can go back and look at it from the beginning of time. Like humans need community. They need each other. They need to feel heard. They need to feel like they have a place. And there are a lot of people who feel like they don't have a place in the world right now. And I think NFTs and communities here have a unique opportunity to give anyone that wants a place a place. And so I think that's going to be the biggest meta we see. And then the secondary meta of NFTs is actual art, right? Like actual art, supporting actual artists and being able to have the provenance of the creator of that art on the blockchain, and to be able to own and to support both small and large artists by using the blockchain. I think those two things are going to be really big here over the next couple months.
Yeah, that brings up a really good question too, with regard to like music NFTs or just NFTs where the holders receive royalties. Jason, do you think that that's actually something that's going to play out, or do you think that regulations regarding securities are going to basically cut that before it really has any room to grow?
I personally, am optimistic in the sense that I don't think that the securities and the laws and these things are going to be fast enough to stop the music and the sports industries from being able to set up these ways in which the creators, in which the athletes, in which the people that are doing the thing that everyone's paying to see get rewarded in some way for their skill and their effort, in a more in kind of a more direct way, but then being able to share that with the community of people who support them, I think is a really, really good idea. That's one thing I didn't mention that is going to see a huge explosion this year of people getting interested in, and that's music, music NFTs. And I'm not meaning like, oh, you buy an NFT that has music behind it. I mean, like, I have a really good friend, Billy Rax. He goes by Cult Leader on Twitter, and he's building he's building a Web3 empire and like setting the standard of what it means to be an artist and a musician in this new world. Like he's doing some really cool stuff. He launched a project called Creatures, and it's like, you guys should go check it out. I mean, it's insane because not only is the art and the story and the culture behind everything he's doing just next level, but he's trying to push the space forward. And I think he's going to set the precedent for a lot of musicians and artists coming into this world. But one of the cool things, I bring this up to say, one of the cool things he's done is on the website that they've built. They basically have created if you own a creature, one of the NFTs, each NFT basically is a track from an album that he has, right? And if you own a creature, you can then go to the website, you can connect, and it says, oh, you have this creature. Here's your track, and it gives you a remix studio with that song. You can live on the website create your own version, your own beat, like from that song. So you can mix it, you can make derivatives of it, and you can save it, export it, full file, like everything for yourself, and you can use that. I think that's a really, really, really cool actual utility innovation for artists in this space, and someone like Billy is doing that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that type of actual cool utility happening.
So like the distribution of IP and the rights to actually utilize it and however one wants to, is that what you're saying is going to be big over the next year, you think?
Yeah. I think I mean, I think if I were an if I were an artist, like what I mean, yeah, I guess there are some benefits of signing with like a record label, but like why not try to have your community be your record label, right? Like why not try and
that's totally something I believe in. I think, when you sign with a label, you're not only signing away 50% of what you're creating, but you're paying that back ultimately as the song releases. But what happens when, like, your day one support your album? Not only are they enjoying your art, they become incentivized to promote it more as well. So it's this full circle of energy of, not only do I believe in this artist, they love what you're doing, they're able to help you. Like, Kickstarter is gone forever in my opinion, because now you're forever able to stay in contact with whoever donated, airdrop them things, and you're able to stream them a very, very small amount of everything that they help contribute to. And that's where I think all of this really starts to click. And like the fact that all this crazy big money's happening is cool because it's making the word NFT largely known globally, um, pretty negatively right now. But in the next few years, the utility of it is going to start to make a lot of sense because digital assets, digital goods such as artwork, music, they're not going anywhere. So imagine a crowdfunded movie too. There's just so many different ways to really utilize a non-fungible token that are very helpful for not only the creatives but the people that love the arts.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's one of the things I think that people that are outside of this world, it's very easy for them to just kind of downplay NFTs. They can say, "Oh, I'm not buying a picture of a monkey. Like, I don't care. This is all going to zero. This is like the tulip mania. Like, nothing's going to come of this." But for me, exactly like you said, right? Like to me, this is this is like this is how I would imagine it was when the internet like first started, like the first builders and creators and people trying to innovate with the World Wide Web. Like I'm just imagining this is how they must have felt, right? Like people thought they were crazy. They're like, this is stupid. Who needs a PC? Like, why are you typing these things into this little box? Like, just you look it up in the phone book, right? Or like whatever it is. It's just it's the same kind of vibe I'm just imagining people felt like when the internet was first becoming popular. And so I think we're literally scratching the surface of how much actual utility and utilization that an NFT, a non-fungible token, can have, and how revolutionary it can actually be to the world in so many ways. I mean, you mentioned a few, but I think again, if you're new or you're just listening and you've never heard about NFTs, or you have and you've only heard negative things, I would just tell you that the PFP, like these little profile picture NFTs and these communities, like this is just like the case study of like, can we like onboard people into this ecosystem and have them understand like what a wallet is, what the blockchain means, what how do you know who owns something. And it's just kind of like the basics. We're in like kindergarten right now of NFTs, of like what it is. But if you actually take the time to think about how this can really change the entire live event space, with concerts, with tickets, with season passes, with the music industry, like if you own the NFT of Billy Rax, he has already built out an entire metaverse world where he puts on live performances in the metaverse. You don't need VR goggles. You can go to the website, you can be in the metaverse with him on stage, but he's performing. He'll do a full concert on there, right? You can be anywhere in the world. Like imagine if Drake or Kanye or someone was like, hey, I'm doing this, virtual like concert. Like, think about the access that gives people to his music, to a live experience for people that wouldn't be able to afford a concert ticket, who couldn't travel, who live in a different country, who would never in their wildest dreams be able to see someone like, some superstar perform. And yet here they are, like getting this really cool experience, a live performance, even though it's online or in the metaverse or whatever you want to say. Like that's powerful, that's impactful. And again, we're just scratching the surface here, boys.
I agree. Yeah. And so it sounds like basically the real common denominator in the entire NFT market and how this place is going to end up developing is it all comes down to connection, right? Whether that's within a small community or between a creator and their community. At the end of the day, there needs to be that bond. Otherwise, I mean, how can you build something great without a strong foundation, right? And the foundation is that bond between people and the actual assets themselves. So we've mentioned it a few times, the current market and climate. How would you define it right now? Because, you could say that, crypto seems kind of dead. You could say that it's just a short-term bear trend and we're going to start rocketing pretty soon. And what do you think are some of the variables to look at, both in crypto, like a DeFi or NFT space, and like macroeconomically? Like, what are all of the things that kind of run through your head when someone asks you, what are your thoughts on the market right now?
Yeah, loaded question. Love it. Let's
I
dig
know.
in. I think I think a lot of people got wiped out the past few weeks from the stock market, from their crypto portfolio, from their NFT portfolio. Liquidity has been sucked up, right? It started with the other side land sucking $500 million out of the ecosystem, which, again, anyone that's tuning in that doesn't know, the other side of the land is affiliated with Bored Ape Yacht Club. There's over 100,000 of these things. They minted for 2.5 ETH each. $500 million was sucked out of the ecosystem as the bear market like ensued, right? So liquidity is at an all-time low. These projects that have clearly failed and have gone to actual zero as of right now, basically, if they're 0.01 or zero, whatever, it's very clear that what all those projects didn't work. And that's this, like, again, it's all about price, or these very fancy roadmaps. The projects that have survived, I think you'll find there's something there. So there, whether it's community, whether it's actual utility, whatever it may be, but there's something to be said about any project right now that is over a 0.1 or 0.15 floor. That means something. So I encourage anyone right now, it's May 17th of 2022. Go look at the NFT market. Go see which projects are above a 0.15 or 0.2 floor. Like, that means something because of what just happened, right? Like, the only reason they're above that floor is because they have something going for them. Now, what that something is to be determined. But what I see coming, in the next few months is, yeah, there's always going to be these pump and dump projects. There's always going to be people trying to make money and flip and, whatever. That's great. If you can make money at it and you want to try that, by all means, it's a free world. Do what you want. But I think there will be a longer period of time in crypto world time frames of actual building happening. I think we're going to see in the next few months the biggest steps forward in terms of use case, in terms of utility, in terms of, like how I just said, this guy created this thing where you just send ETH to an address and it mints back. Like, that's what I see happening here before a next like big run up. And I think the projects that will have a big run up, it's not going to look the same that it did previously. But in terms of, is that going to happen? Or, I mean, I personally think, like, macroeconomically speaking, again, I touch the financial markets as well a lot. I do think we are going to be in an extended period of no growth, right? It can be stagnant, maybe it declines more, but we're not going to be seeing these, like, the market's not going to be going up 20% every year for the next 5 years kind of thing. Like, I don't want to call it a recession, but we're going to be in a period of, like, not a lot happening financially anywhere. And so in those periods of time is when the building happens. And everyone knows that. Like, all the big things that happened in NFTs the past 2 years have been being built for years, right? Like, and I think that now that people don't have liquidity, so people can't just go out and gamble on all these projects every day. And by the way, there are way less people that are sitting at home because they're working from home, because a lot of companies have gone back to being in the office. Like, there are so many factors, if you think about it macroeconomically, that have sucked a lot of people out of the market, whether they are completely illiquid, they lost all the money they had to play with, they're out, or they had to go back to work. They're back in their job. They're back at their office. They can't be on Discord or Twitter all day. So there's just a lot less people than there were. And you can look at the charts on this, by the way. You can see the number of users, the volume, everything is at very, very, very low right now. So during these periods is when I feel actual building is going to happen. And so I wouldn't expect, if you're hopping in the NFT space now, to make a lot of money, but now is the time to hop in the NFT space, because now is the time where there's a lot less noise happening and there's a lot more opportunities to actually learn and network and connect with people, which at this stage of NFTs, the money doesn't matter. There's no amount of money that will replace the people that you're meeting that are in this space now. And I think that is a paramount thing about this space. Like, it should not be about the money right now. You literally just want to network and connect with the people who you want to roll with for the next 10, 15, 20 years in Web3.
Yeah, I agree. I think I wouldn't trade any profits that I've made over the last year or two for the friends that I've made over the last year or two. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the profits, don't get me wrong, but I think the friends, because I've been in crypto for a pretty long time, but I've usually kept to myself. I've been very, very like on my own path, and I think a lot have. I have some friends that I've made since like 2015, 2016, and we're all still in crypto, but everyone, it's kind of an old thing. It's not quite as exciting. For some of them, they're older too. They're like 5 to 10 years older on average, and they have families and everything. So, but I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. There's low liquidity and low free time because everyone is working and people are shorter on money. The credit usage is going way up, which is indicative of exactly what you said. And everything is opened up, and I think macroeconomically what's happened is the Fed did a really good job of opening up the economy. And now they have to do a pretty good job of turning it back around I think everything did run up more so than they expected, and now the tightening is probably going to end up reducing things more than they had anticipated. And my prediction is that they're going to actually have to start turning on the money printers again to keep everything going. Otherwise, we're just going to have
100%.
stagflation. And I think that the inflation that we're seeing is not even really inflation. I think it's really all just tied to the supply chain issues that we're having in China and globally because of COVID, because COVID is still causing a lot of issues, I think. And so that's I think we agree on pretty much everything there, which is pretty cool to see. Oh, go ahead.
You said something that I thought was really good. It's like if you could chart liquidity against free time, right now that would be a cool chart to see. Actually, I don't know how you would calculate free time. I guess you could look at the employment or unemployment rates maybe, but I think that's really interesting. We're at a point of historically low liquidity for retail traders, right? Like if you're VCs, private equity groups, like you raised all your money and you're sitting on piles of cash, figuring out what you're going to do with it. And again, I come from that world, so I know that there's hundreds of billions of dollars just waiting to be deployed. But the retail, the consumer, all of us, liquidity is at an all-time low. And now free time is shifting to an all-time low. So that sparked in my brain that is the thesis behind why I'm going all in on Web3 and content creation. Because how many people have free time right now? Not many, because a lot of people had to go back to work. How many people have the bandwidth to go months without making any money right now in this current climate? Not many, because where are you making money? Because everything's down, right? Like you're stuck. You need to pay rent. You got to get bills. So for me, and any creators out there, any people interested in being creative, again, now is the time to build, to create, because no one else is doing it. You have a lot less competition now. That's just my take. And you just inspire me to think that, because you're like, oh, low liquidity, low free time. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think also anyone building right now has the advantage of being able to look back at not only all of the mistakes that may have been made in this last cycle, but also look at the absence of where there needs to be innovation. Things like the contract, basically a trustless, non-custodial intermediary minter, right, for your NFT, makes a lot of sense, right? Cross-chain minting, I think that's going to be a thing. I think one-click onboarding needs to be a thing, right? I mean, if you come from like digital marketing, right, you know what it means to set up like a funnel and all that good stuff. Not that you should be looking at NFTs as that, in my opinion. You shouldn't be looking at them as though you're trying to sell a product. You should be looking at them as though you're trying to build a community. But just looking at it from that perspective, right? Like you have to worry about your click-through rate and the amount of time that people take before they actually click on your call to action, all that good stuff. Having someone go through all of the hoops of setting up a wallet is just way too much. And so anybody who comes up with solutions for that, I think, is going to do pretty well in the next cycle, because ideally they'll basically be the premier minting solution, right? I mean, I think something even with like not KYC necessarily. KYC was used by obviously other side to prevent like botting. Obviously, I'm sure some still happened, but I think like proof of humanity needs to be a big thing. I think that's going to help a lot with like regulation too and tracking and all of these different things. So if you're building today, yeah, you have a lot of different advantages to someone who may have maybe started building, 6 months ago, 6 to 8 months ago, and thought that you were going to mint out. It didn't happen. And maybe now you're sitting on a collection where it's zero and your reputation is zero too, right? Down with it, unless you create a new identity, of course. So, I mean, who cares about money at the end of the day, right? Like it's, I think, better to and cooler to build something that's going to last a lifetime or even longer, and have your name on that than, another zero or two on your net worth. Yeah. So going into like cross-chain stuff, have you always been on Ethereum? Have you played on other chains? Do you see any hope for value being created in NFT communities on other chains? Or do you think there's just the network effect for Ethereum is just too great and there won't ever really be a whole lot of value on some of these other chains? And what do you think are the variables to take into that you personally take into account when answering this question?
Yeah, I think that's a question that I think people outside of the NFT world are obviously asking and curious about, like, well, why Ethereum? I don't want to be someone who's like, oh, it'll never be another, never be another chain that NFTs are done on.
Right,
I'm
you're
not
not
going
an
to be
ETH
that.
maxi. Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. I'm not an ETH maxi, but I will say that it's going to be very, very difficult to flip ETH in the current climate. Again, if Bitcoin goes down to 22,000 and the maker vaults in Celsius get liquidated, and then Bitcoin goes back under 10,000 and everything hits the fan, which, by the way, is actually a possibility. If so it's not like out of the realm of question now. Especially now, everyone I think had a wake up call with the Luna debacle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not out of the realm. So certainly, if there's some like macro level correction, like substantial correction, yeah, sure, there's a higher chance of something taking out ETH. I think there's something I'm a little worried about right now, and I'm seeing this just start happening literally in the last week, less than a week. And you guys maybe just put this on your radar to be cognizant of as well. I'm seeing some really big influencers. And by the way, a lot of these influencers are all managed by the same companies. There are like 3 companies that manage all the influencers. I know this because I'm working, I'm trying to potentially, develop a relationships with myself, right? So interviewing different people, trying to understand this world, like from a creator's perspective. And the thing that I'm seeing that's worrying me is all of a sudden there are a lot of these big influencers that have accumulated a very large bag of Solana NFTs, like huge bags of Solana NFTs. And I'm now seeing, it looks to me like a coordinated effort to get people to FOMO in over on Solana. I think it's going to end very poorly for a lot of people outside of the people who are telling you to go and buy the things on Solana. I personally do not I do not think Solana is a good chain. I think there are a lot of problems with it. I don't think it's I don't think it's decentralized. There are like a lot, like there are times where the entire Solana network is just completely down for like extended periods of time, right? You can't even do anything. I think there are a lot of issues with Solana personally. So, but I'm just saying, you brought that question up, like, are NFTs always going to be on ETH? Certainly there's going to be NFTs on lots of other chains, but I think the lion's share of them will, for most likely, always be on ETH. But I think people will test stuff, Tron, I think actually, I don't want to misquote it, but I'm pretty sure Billy, the artist I was telling you about, he launched his first part of the collection of creatures on Tron, and now he's going to do the other part of the collection on ETH. So he is, again, he's innovating in a lot of ways. He's trying to like bridge communities on different chains. He's trying to bridge artistry and NFTs. So I think you'll see people do this, just be creative and try to utilize more chains and more tools to be as inclusive as possible. But I don't think it's going to catch legs and be like, oh, now there's this other chain that everyone's investing on. And I do want to just give again the caveat on Solana. I'm just sensing it. I see it. I see a coordinated effort of some very large people trying to get people to buy stuff on Solana, and it does not look good to me.
Got it. So watch out for the coordinated shill, basically, is the alert there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of shine the limelight on you a little bit and give you some time to really go over everything that you're building, what you're working on, and just kind of bring up anything else that you'd like to share with anyone listening.
Yeah. So I mean, as everyone knows, I guess by now, I've recently left my IRL Web2 call it job as of 2 weeks ago. I think now it's been. I don't know. The time seems to just disappear now. Like I have way too much to do and not enough time. But yeah, so I recently took this jump, and for all the reasons we've discussed already, the opportunity is right. The time is right. I feel passionate about this stuff. Hopefully, even in this short podcast that we've had here, anyone listening can hear how passionate I am about this. I do think it's the future. I do think it's going to be huge. And I want to be a part of it. And I also like making content. Some of my content is goofy and silly and fun, right? Like if you go look at my TikTok stuff, a lot of that, I've told stories, but I just like share weird and random stuff, and I just like to have fun. And so sometimes it's fun to poke the bear and post something that, half the people will think you're crazy and half the people will get that you're just trying to be funny. So I like that, right? Like I really do enjoy making content, building community, but the underlying thread of everything I do is like, I'm a genuine person. Like I hope you can tell I'm pretty positive. Like I like having fun. And I want to make sure that people are educated and have good information. And I've built over the past 9 months on Twitter, I've tried to build my credibility, right? Like I'm doxed, I'm a real person. I try to go out of my way to make sure everything I'm sharing or doing is factual, is legit, has meaning and purpose. So all that being said, part of what I'm going to be doing now is making content. And so I'm going to be making a lot more Web3 content. So that's not just NFTs, but talking about DeFi, talking about crypto. DeFi is a tough one. You've been in it, so it's very complex and it's not user friendly for anyone, really, outside of if you already are good with computers or kind of know what you're doing. So there's an opportunity in all of these areas to make content that is easily digestible, but informative and fun. That's my ethos. Easily digestible, informative, and fun, and 30 seconds or less. So no one is really doing the 30-second or less style videos. So I've posted quite a few of those on Twitter. I do have on my YouTube channel. I obviously post. I post all of my viral stuff, let's call it, like more broad audience, general entertainment stuff, and my NFT stuff. I post all of that on Jason Cline Show on YouTube. But I do have a playlist. Right now I have one playlist and I think 7 or 8 videos up called NFT Alpha. I'll probably change it and work it around. But the idea is to be creating more of this type of content that I'm posting on Twitter, I'm posting on YouTube. I'm actually going to start a new TikTok channel. And that'll be all Web3 only. So I can kind of separate it with the goal is, my brand is Jason Cline Show. So think about some of these other channels or shows or creators that are building something bigger than just their one little niche or their one thing. Like I'd love to have videos or a series that people are doing under my channel, Jason Cline Show, that's about like, people enjoying like bourbon or whiskey from around the world. Like I have lots of interests, right? And I don't want to be like put in one little box of like, oh, Jason's making only this type of video. I think it's cool to be able to just be authentic, be yourself, and make content that that you like, whether or not it's going to get millions of views or not. To me, isn't the point. So all of that to say, Jason Cline show is hoping to be one of the top 5 creators in the Web3 space, specifically for more of the short form video content and kind of Twitter content. That's going to be my niche. I think YouTube right now is a tough place for anyone trying to do long form video, because all of those creators are mainly established, and those videos take a long time to make. I think the biggest bang for buck right now is short form video. Same thing I saw on TikTok. I see the same thing on YouTube Shorts. I had 0 subscribers 5 months ago on YouTube. I have 140,000 subscribers now, all from short form videos. I think there's power there in getting that reach and getting that audience and building that community as quickly as possible. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, no, it's awesome content as well. I've been checking it out, and super informative, super fun, which is a great balance to strike, because at the end of the day, the best way to learn is in an entertainment fashion. So yeah, all the links will be in the show note. So yeah, definitely check out that. And thank you so much for jumping on. This conversation has been quite amazing. We'd love to get you back on to see and catch up with you as you progressed on your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate both of you. I would love to be back on in the future. I guess my goal is I'm going at 110% right now. Like I'm going to be pedal to the metal. I'm going to the conferences. I'm going to go to Consensus in Austin, NFT NYC. Like my goal is to be everywhere, to be on podcasts, to be speaking at conferences, to be meeting the people, to be posting the videos. Getting into the top 5 in this space from someone that's a known person is difficult, but that's my goal, and I'm going to get there. And I would love to share that process and journey with you guys another time.
Yeah, of course, man. It sounds like we're perfectly aligned on all of the values that we share here in Web3, and it's been a real pleasure chatting with you. I have a lot more questions, but I think we can go ahead and save them for next time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And again, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate you, Bunsey. Everyone, links will be in the show notes. And always feel free to hit us up on Twitter or in the Discord. We're happy to get back to you and go from there. But any closing thoughts, gentlemen? All right. Okay. So it looks like we are good. Again, thanks, Jason. Thanks, Bunsey. Till next time.
Welcome to FutureFi, where our mission is to educate and elevate Web 3.0. Prepare for exploration in 3, 2,